So today's talk is called "The Old Wineskins Just Don't Hold Up." You know, they don't. If you don't know what that means, I'm going to explain it here in a moment. In both, all three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus' parables of the old wineskins, new wineskins, and old cloth and new cloth parables are back to back, different sections, different chapters in each book, but they're in all three. And he's talking about people. The disciples come to him and they say, "How come we don't fast like they do?" Meaning the Pharisees and you know, those other religious people where you came from. How come we don't fast like them? And Jesus says, well, if you were at a wedding, would you fast before the bridegroom leaves? Jesus was referring to himself as the bridegroom at the wedding. You know, would you fast on what I'm saying here? Would you fast on all this before I leave? Would you take time away from this wonderful spirituality? And then he goes on to tell these two parables about you don't sew a new patch onto an old piece of clothing, or an unshrunken piece of fabric onto an old piece of clothing, because the problem is when that new patch shrinks, it's going to tear the clothing again. So you need to put a shrunken piece of clothing or cloth to patch your old clothes. And the same with the wineskins. As the wineskin was used, it dried out and it would begin to crack. So if you put the new wine in, which is going to stretch the skin, it's going to crack the old wineskin and your wine is going to leak out. And so it just won't work. And it's the same with our new thought spirituality. We really cannot put it into our old religious beliefs because they will fall apart and you won't understand what's going on. This is not to enhance an old belief. This message is not here to make an old belief palatable or workable. We are not here to make your misery more manageable. And that's what a lot of people, they go into 12-step recovery, they come to New Thought, to make their misery more manageable. They're not going to give up their misery. You know who you are, I hope. And, because I'm not here to point out anybody in the crowd, quite frankly. I do not think that you can somehow take your old battered self and make yourself happy with it, with this message, to gloss over it. What Unity or New Thought asks of all of us is a restructuring of our thoughts of self, our thoughts of our own worthiness, of the kingdom, our thoughts. And so to take a little bit of this and seek to apply it and gloss it over, well, I can still keep these resentments, I can still keep this, I can still think this way, I can still hate my body while I'm affirming God's highest good. And that's kind of what it comes down to, isn't it? I can still hate while affirming that God is love. All beings are good until I don't like them. You know, and, yeah, that's what we're trying to do, to fool ourselves. That, it's all good. That's one of my least favorite. It's all good. Is it really? Is it really? Do you really believe that it's all good? No, it's horrible. Because I am not living in understanding. I don't even want understanding, you know, when I'm in that thing. When I owe money, when I owe an apology, I'm not trying to get understanding. I'm just trying to find a way to squeak through it before I get yelled at, before I get caught in my confusion. So because when I get caught or yelled at, then I'm embarrassed, which is the worst thing ever, to be embarrassed in front of everybody. So, oh my gosh, until you start really practicing at this, and then who cares if I'm embarrassed? It makes no difference at all. I remember when I wanted to rollerblade, and I was so afraid because what if I fall down in front of a city of strangers? I was in New York City, really. What if I fell down and got embarrassed? What if? And I'll tell you how I got past it. JFK and Daryl Hannah, JFK Jr., Daryl Hannah were in a photograph in Central Park, rollerblading together. And I thought, if he's not worried about being seen falling down, or who knows me? Nobody's going to take my photo if I fall down. And so I got out my blades, and I went and I learned how to blade, and I had years of fun. And to think I might have missed out on that because of old shame thinking. I might have missed out on a really good time because of old shame thinking. And it's just, I've asked this question before, and I'll ask it again today. Who here devotes more time each day to worry than you do praise? Yeah. That is the old wineskin. Worry. You tell me where the God of your being has asked you to worry. Please tell me at what category of your life said, you really ought to worry about this. You really ought to be concerned for your health today. You really ought to be concerned for your money today. You really ought to be concerned about what people think about you today. You really ought to be. When I pray, I never once hear the voice within me say that. And that's funny, Jesus, referring to himself as the bridegroom, what he's saying is that one day he will leave. And that's when he sends the Comforter, or the voice of Holy Spirit, we know it as. That highest voice within us. Just as he had a highest voice within him that guided him to think and say and do what ought to have been thought and said and done by him. And each of us have a path of what we ought to think, say, and do. And when I say ought, what I mean is to be free, to be of value, to be of good purpose, and to play the game. Well, I don't know what it is. You don't have to know specifically. You're not going to be given the guidance so you can be safe. We receive this guidance, and then we take a risk to find out. Was this it? Was this it? And I find frequently, when I started incorporating correct perception in the Sunday morning service, I didn't know if it would work. We used to do community prayer, and I found that to be non-productive because I found we talked a lot about sickness in it and a lot of specialness. It seemed like a lot of people knew a lot of people who were sick, and we focused a lot more on sickness than we did on health and well-being, and I cut it out. I cut it out of our service, and we went to good news, and we used to just complete an affirmation that I passed around, and I knew that was unsatisfying ultimately to the community. I thought, what do we do here? And on one New Year's Sunday, I decided, let's try this thing, and we'll call it correct perception. And I had no idea if I would be present enough to respond to anyone. And at the beginning, when I'd hear things to respond, and I thought, really, is that gonna? And I thought, trust, just say it. Just say it out loud and see what happens. And that's what I've done for years now. I just say what comes to me to say, because I'm not the judge of it. A couple of times I have had to restrain what I thought was funny. And I thought, this is not the time to be funny, Shawn. Just say what you hear to have said, not do a routine. And then other times, and so to pay attention to your guidance that leads you, and your guidance that leads you. And not everybody's going to be your friend, and not everybody's going to like what you have to say, and you will be a threat, to some people who don't want to be free. You will be a total threat, and you won't always be popular. If you need an example of this, read the story of Jesus. Jesus was not popular with everyone. I don't know of any leader who was popular with everyone. Do you? Do you? Even Mother Teresa was not called good by everyone. I believe the church denounced her because she was too liberal. And so to know not everyone in leadership, and we are all in leadership, is going to be liked and appreciated in the moment. Now, it could be, though, that we are all gardeners. We're all planting seeds of goodness for each other. Now, here's the thing. We are also the garden. And so do we allow the seed to grow? The seed of goodness, the seed of health and wealth and well-being? Or do we insist that, oh no, that doesn't apply to me because I still want my misery. I still want to be sad. I still want to be afraid. Now you think, who wants to be afraid? You know, I think, I don't want to be afraid anymore. Well, then you have to look at yourself and say, wait a minute. In this New Thought spirituality, in this message, it offers complete and total freedom and well-being, first in thought. And then it follows through. And someone said, oh, but I'm doing that, or he or she is doing that. I said, are they following through with the word? Are they declaring health at every turn? Are they declaring well-being at every turn? Where is their out clause for health? Where is your out clause for well-being? Where is your out clause for prosperity? Oh, yes, I believe. I say I am prosperous 200 times a day. And then I get on Facebook and I criticize people. Oh, that has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with your money. All of our criticism of the world has everything to do with our body. It has everything to do with our relationships. It has everything to do with our money. And it has everything to do with our circumstances. Now, first of all, let's eliminate the word bad from all of our circumstances. Let's eliminate the word bad. Let's eliminate all inaccurate descriptions of our circumstances. So let's take the swear words out of it. Let's take that vernacular that does not accurately describe the situation. We think by saying it, we're going to ease some pain. We're going to ease some struggle, but we really don't. We just box ourselves even further when I say I feel like such and such, or I am such and such, or I am this. No. Let's eliminate the word bad. Let's eliminate the word poor. Let's eliminate certain words that do not accurately describe. So here's the deal. There is no situation, there is no event that could ever be accurately described by the word bad. There can be, this is a situation I don't like because I experience fear or sadness when I think about it, when I see it. That's very different than saying, oh, this is a bad situation. How do you know? Really? Are you talking to God that closely? Do you think God is calling anything bad or anyone bad? No. Here's the deal. We're human beings in this human body, and we experience what we call fear. We experience trepidation. We experience that stuff. But it doesn't mean I am fear. It doesn't mean I am what I'm feeling. It just means I'm experiencing it in my thoughts, in my nervous system. One of the best pieces of advice I give to a lot of people is don't panic over the panic. It's very logical that we will panic over certain situations. It is not logical to panic about the panic. That's doubly reinforcing something that isn't true to begin with. Panic is just an experience. It is not a state of mind, or consciousness. It is not a state of my God self. How often do you declare that you are a God being you? I am a God being me. I am a God being. I'm a God being. I'm a God being. I have all the qualities of God in every cell, every tissue, every fiber of my being. And I need to declare it more frequently. And I need to think that about others. Even though in truth there are no others. But you know what I mean? We look like others. We're in disguise of ourselves in other clothes. And so, to look at others, Oh, now, here's the funny part. When we get together, we're not going to have anything to talk about. I want to warn you all. When we get together for dinner and lunch, we're going to have nothing to talk about if we're all just accepting that we are God beings. And it's like, I love Edwene Gaines in her book, when she talks about no complaining for 21 days. And she said, after a couple of days, she realized, I don't have one thing to say. I didn't have a single thing to say suddenly. I couldn't have a conversation with anybody. I couldn't. And then she got past it. And she began to transform her cells. And that's what you and I want to do. We want to transform ourselves into new beings. New divine beings of consciousness. And so we will have to eliminate the affirmations of the opposite of the very thing we want to experience. And I'm going to have to do it along with everybody else if I want to know my freedom. If I want to know, if I want to stop trying to convince the world that it is somehow bad. See, sometimes my conversations are trying to convince myself and the world that they are less than God beings, because I'm uncomfortable with some of your behaviors. And I don't like myself and what I think and I don't mean you personally, I mean the world. And so to begin, and I get setting boundaries. If it's just not fun to hang out with someone, why would I do it? Why would I do that? Now, I don't have to hate the person, and I don't have to tell them they are bad. I can simply say, it's not fun. It's just not fun. I'm going to go over here where I'm going to have fun. If you want to know more about God, come talk to me. But if you want to know more about problem, maybe you and I are not the best people to hang out. What frightens me is I'm afraid some of you might say that to me. I'm afraid I could go to lunch with some of you and you'll say, Shawn, I'm not having fun here. But if you want to know more about God, call me. We'll go to lunch again. And it's like, oh. You see, I am not exempt from the mistaken thinking. I want to read this to you. And to myself, quite frankly. And it comes from Mark, chapter 2, and it is the Holy Spirit's interpretation equivalent of the two parables. And it's Mark, chapter 2, and it starts with verse 18. As Jesus' listening and understanding increased, the traditions of Jesus' world began to fall away from him. It was this letting go of the ways of the world that his people could not understand. And so they asked him about it. And Jesus explained that as one comes to know God within the heart, only God within the heart comes to be important to him. And all that is not within the heart loses its importance. But they were not ready for these words, and so they did not understand. Jesus loved the people, wanted to help them understand. He gave them examples through illustrations. And he says, awareness of truth is a newness that fills you with light, different from anything you seem to know before. How can one be filled with such newness, such light, and such difference, and not seem to be different on the outside? What is inside is seen outside. And so by seeing the outside, you know the inside is changing too. Years ago, I had somebody that I really was angry with, just so angry with, and I didn't even want to let it go. I took great satisfaction in being right. And a few of us worked together in the city, and a lot of us didn't care for him. This one, well, I don't know if a lot of us, but this one group I worked with did not care for him and his behaviors, and we had judgments, and we were right, and we got together to be right about him. Except for one thing. I was in hell. I was in hell being right. And I do continue to look for alternatives to that consciousness, the hell consciousness, the confused consciousness. And so, I prayed and prayed and prayed, and one day I heard the answer, and I called him up and said, hey, but you didn't expect to hear from me. And he said, no. And I said, I'm going to be in your neighborhood in a little bit. Would you like to have dinner tonight? He said, I'd love that. Now, we've been friends ever since, and we've never discussed the past. And I was set free from the prison of a hell consciousness. My friends I worked with have never quite forgiven me for making up with him, because we had so convinced ourselves that something was bad and had to be destroyed, at least emotionally, a character assassination. And I didn't want that anymore. I wanted to be free. Now I absolutely love those other people. And I would gladly hang out with them again. But they don't seem to want to hang out with me so much. And I'm okay with that, because I can still love them. I can absolutely love them and remember them with joy and well-being. And I can forgive myself for having forgotten, for having been confused about another friend. And so I really have the best of both worlds with that. So this is my understanding. Just because I have forgotten, just because I have misbehaved, just because of all that doesn't mean I can't go around the river bend and come back here and change my mind, because I want to know God better, and I want to know myself as God better. And I can change my thinking, I can change my word, and I can change my whole body. I can transform everything about myself into light and love just by deciding to. Just by deciding that, oh, I'd rather know health and well-being. I'd rather know wealth and peace of mind, and I would rather know harmony than be enslaved to the old behavior. But what I cannot do is have love and hatred at the same time. I can't bring my spirituality into my old hatred in order to maintain the hatred on a lighter level. Hate light, if you will. I cannot do that. I can't have sickness light. I cannot have poor light, poverty light. We don't have to settle for it. Well, at least I don't have this. Well, at least I don't. No, I came into Unity and they told me I could have all good. All good was my divine inheritance. All good. They told me there was a way into total health and well-being. They told me there was a way into total wealth and well-being. They told me there was a way into all harmony and well-being. And it all would start with my thinking, because all the other stuff had started with my thinking. But they also told me I can't categorize. I can't settle for some thinking, well, I can have this and I can't have this. If I can't have this, I probably can't have that. I can have the appearance of that, but I can't have them both unless I have them both. Can't have one without the other. That's the good news. That is the very good news. I invite us all to change our thinking into remembering, wait a minute, I am loved by God because I can't not be. God is love itself, and I can't undo that. And God is joy itself, so my inheritance is joy. And God is peace and wisdom itself, so my inheritance is peace and wisdom. Everything good is mine, and everything good is my neighbor's. And so for at least this one moment, while I'm up here talking with all of you, I want to declare my willingness, and I hope it lasts, that I am willing to see good as all beings. Not in all beings, but as all beings. And I am one of the all beings. I declare my willingness to know that my past is now serving me for good. I am willing to know that your past is now serving you for good. I can't make you understand that. I cannot force you to understand that. But I am declaring my willingness to see it for myself and set my space in my garden beautifully. I am changing, and I'm glad. Thank you.